Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the next session. We just finished an excellent keynote with Ernie Stevens. Thank you so much, Ernie, for being on. It was an honor to have you. And our next session here is called "We're Going in a Different Direction," and it is with Rob McMullen. He is an executive director with Knox County 911 Central Dispatch out of Indiana. Thank you, my good friend, for being here and for doing this session. It's an important story, that everyone can learn from. So thank you for being here, man, and take it away.
Thanks for having me, and thank you, everyone, and good morning. My name is, as Ricardo said, Rob McMullen. I'm the executive director of Knox County 901 Central Dispatch in Vincennes, Indiana. I'm formerly NENA president a couple of years ago, and I tell you, doing this is, I'm not going to lie, I'm nervous as hell. I've never done a virtual conference like this. Usually I can speak in front of anybody and it doesn't bother me, but for whatever it is now, man, this is nerve wracking. So anyway, we're all good. Let's get this going. And if anybody has any questions or anything, feel free to type them in and we'll answer them. So, okay, let's go. So we're going in a different direction. A lot of people hear that. It seems to be always one of the things that people kind of make fun of is like, we're going in a different direction. Well, I tell you, I heard those words on February 28th, 2019. Just after lunch, I was called back from lunch. As a fat guy as I am, I always have to go out to eat for lunch, and I I got called in. I had just basically finished, and I got a text from one of my dispatchers saying, "Hey, the chief deputy's was down here asking where you're at." So I'm like, "Okay, cool." So then I got a text from him and saying, "Hey, can you come back to the office?" It was a chief deputy because the department I was at before we were kind of quasi our separate agency, but we were in the same building as the sheriff's department and all that good stuff. So he texted me and said, "Hey, can you come back to the office?" I said, "Sure. I'm just finishing up lunch. Hang tight, and I'll be there in a second. Can you tell me what's going on?" Or I asked, "What's up?" And there was no response. So I'm like, "Oh, that's kind of weird." So I got my vehicle and turned back to the sheriff's department. As I was coming around the lot of the city county building, I noticed a vehicle that was not normally in the lot, and I don't know why it struck me, but I knew it was one of the county commissioners. And I was like, well, that's why it's there. So it just kind of, I started putting my investigative hat on. I was like, well, I've been called back. There's a commissioner's vehicle in the lot. It's like, well, something's not right. Park my car, walk up to the door, swipe my entry badge, and it didn't open. The door didn't open. It just was like, it just flashed red. So I had to hit the button to have one of the jail officers let me in. Went to the next door, did the same thing. It didn't let me in. It just was like, flashing red. I'm like, so then at that point, your kind of stomach starts to drop. So I walk into the jail and into the administrative area, through the door, and turn the corner, and there at the sheriff's office, and the sheriff was standing at his desk, and the chief deputy was standing beside him. So I walked in, and there sat a county commissioner and the HR director for the county. They said, "Go ahead and have a seat." So I'm like, okay, cool. They come back and sit down there, and the commissioner said, "Rob, we'd like to thank you for your service over the past almost 8 years. But the other commissioners and I have looked at some stuff, and I heard those words. We're going to go in a different direction." I was flabbergasted, had no idea. I was just out of the blue and didn't know. I had no idea what to say. And as a matter of fact, I didn't say anything. it just seemed like everything just fell out from underneath me. The commissioner said, we're going to go in a different direction. Um, Basically, that was it. He said the county attorney will be in contact with you. We'll make sure that your office is packed up, and thank you for your service. I mean, that was literally it. I said nothing. The HR director didn't say anything. The sheriff didn't say anything. Chief deputy didn't say anything. So I walked out the door with the chief deputy, and he told me, which he and I had been friends for the past 7.5 years since I've been working there. We got to be fairly good friends. We walked out the door, and he's like, Rob, we had no clue. He said, this come out of nowhere. We didn't know anything about this. He said, if I would have known, I would have let you know. He said, it just all come out of nowhere. So he actually he hugged me and said, good luck. And I got in my car and I drove. And I didn't know what the hell to do. Matter of fact, I sat in my car for a minute, and I just kind of collected my thoughts and didn't understand, didn't really know what was next. This probably had come at one of the worst times of my life. Just 2 months earlier, I had found that my wife had been having an affair on me. She was living and working in Indianapolis, and was just kind of up there, and we discovered that this was going on. At that point, I didn't know what to do. I just kind of went and drove and found a parking lot in the southern part or in South Terre Haute, and just sitting there. And I called a friend, and she come over, and we talked for a while, and it didn't know what to do. I felt that I was at the worst point of my life. I was unemployed, getting ready to go through, a divorce, a separation. I had already been having some severe depression, and it was rough. I literally had no clue what to do. I sat there in the parking lot for probably 45 minutes to an hour, just thinking, just talking to myself and thinking what the hell was next. So I went home, and we live where we live is I call it our compound. I live about 300 yards from my parents and my grandparents out in the country. So I went home and I notified my parents, and they're like, "What are you doing home already?" I said, "I got fired." And they're like, "What?" And I said, "Yeah, your guess is as good as mine." I said, "I got fired. No reason, no nothing else." So I got home. The boys come home that day. I've got two children. Today's his 17th birthday, and I've got a 12-year or 11-year-old. And they're like, "Dad, what are you doing home early?" I said, "Well, but guys, I got fired." And they just kind of like, "What?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, I just lost my job, so I don't know what's going on. So they kind of freaked out a little bit. And of course, they're figuring out how they're going to keep being able to get Xbox games and watch TV and all that good stuff. So that's the first thing that comes to their life. Don't worry about eating or anything else. They just want to make sure that they're going to have time for their games and stuff. So that night was pretty just. I sit in the living room for a little bit, and then I was like, I can't handle it anymore. I went and just laid in bed. So I laid there, and over the next several hours, I got several phone calls. I mean, my phone was actually blowing up from from employees that I had, sheriff's deputies, administrative staff, just other people that I knew um, calling me and saying, "Hey, everything's okay. Everything's going to be okay." The sheriff who had just gotten out of office earlier that year, he messaged me and he's like, "Rob." I said, "Yeah, it's Rob." He said, "Can I text you?" Because they weren't sure if the number that I had or my phone that I had was a county-owned number or if it was a county-owned phone or whatever like that. So they wanted to make sure that they could talk to me. So he called and he was like, "Rob, I'm sorry if you need anything. Everybody's very supportive and sorry to hear that, but everybody's calling me just saying that we're sorry and what can we do?" It's like, "Well, hell, I don't know what to do. I've worked since I've been in college. I've never gotten fired from a job, especially a job like this. I didn't know what I was going to do. I needed a couple days to just kind of figure out. So I decided that, figure I need to probably file for unemployment or however that like that. But thinking that being, an administrator, I was like, well, I don't know what's going on with unemployment. I didn't know if they would fight my unemployment. So I went and filed for unemployment, but yet I never heard anything. I didn't know if they were going to fight it. So I didn't know what to do. I just went and I applied and I never heard anything and never heard anything and never heard anything for like 3 months in. So, I went without, I had at that time I had vacation time coming and all this stuff. So money was okay, but I didn't know how to do the whole unemployment thing. And that was something that I was not familiar with and didn't know that once you file for unemployment, then you've got to start looking for jobs and start doing things like that. So I worked on that. Had some, I tell you what, during the time that I was off, I had amazing lawn. My lawn skills were on point. My yard didn't have a weed in it. I was mowing, weed eating. My pool was so nice and clean, man. Everything was good. My friend's house was, her yard was nice and clean, and it was looking perfect. But I still doing to figuring out what was going on. So I just worked and started looking for jobs and immediately started looking for jobs. And I tell you what, I applied. I immediately went on Indeed or LinkedIn or anything else that I was doing and was applying. I applied to basically any place in the state. I'm like, you know what, or any place in the nation. It's like I don't care. We're gonna figure something out. I applied in Michigan. I applied in Tennessee, Alabama, Iowa, Washington State, California, Texas. I was applying wherever I could, anything from anything that I could do, and I had a lot of interviews. It was great to do some virtual interviews. I went to Chicago for some interviews just to figuring out what I needed to do. But unfortunately, I couldn't with those interviews. I couldn't. They were paying very well or had a lot of experience. But my house that I live in currently is paid for, and I've got childcare with my parents living next to me and not having to do anything. So trying to figure out how much I needed what type of job I needed to look for, and how much it was going to be. What type of job would I need to just uproot my entire family, me and my boys, to move to a different location, to a different state. And then I had to worry about, a house payment and childcare and everything else. And a lot of those places that I applied for just wasn't enough to make that jump. I even had many conversations with lots of people in my support group, and Ricardo, of course, with hosting this, was within that support group saying, do I even want to be in public safety anymore? This is something that always happens, especially when you're in an administrative position. You're working under, different commissioners, different county councils, whatever it may be in your particular area. You're kind of always at their leisure. If they have a different direction they want to go, or somebody that they want to put in your position, you're out that you can be without that job, and most of the time there's no questions, no nothing. It's just like I had. It's like, okay, here you go, you're out of a job, have a good day, and that's all there is. And that's kind of one of the things that is the bad thing about our position, and all of us being involved in this type of in this type of job, is we just never know. So I looked and looked and interviewed at several different places. Even, went to several conferences that I'd already been kind of scheduled to go to, with being a past president of NINA, and having some connections. I know that I went to the Michigan conference, I went to the Texas conference, Indiana, and even national conference during those times, just so I could, to make some connections, and trying to see what's out there in the job, and talk to lots of people, and had many I won't say opportunities, but trying to figure out where I could go from the next step. But it come back, trying to find a job, and some days are really good, some days are bad, and the depression just really creeping in, and trying to keep my head above water, and pay some bills, and make sure that I was surviving for myself and for the boys. I'm not gonna lie. There were several nights that it was really bad. I had one of my best friends has now moved to Las Vegas, and she was actually a counselor, or so she helped me. Many nights, there was many nights laying in bed trying to figure out what I wanted to do, just because I couldn't face the world, and trying to figure out how I could make the next step, and go to the what I needed to do. And she was trying to help me the best she could, being in Vegas, with the time difference, and me doing trying to survive. And I'm not gonna lie, there was some pretty dark moments there, pretty dark nights. There was one night that I even recall that it was really rough. I always, being a former law enforcement and public safety, I always had firearms in the house, and had a pistol that, I always kept pretty close to the bed. We live out in the country, and you just never know what's going to happen. So I remember taking that one night. It was probably about 5 o'clock in the evening. I was having a super bad day. I'd already been out and kind of taken a baseball bat to the garage, and put some holes in the wall in the garage. And I took my gun up to my mom and dad's and said, "Here, you probably need to hold this for the next couple of days, because I'm just not in a good spot." It went through my mind numerous times to, would it be better if I left? The only thing that kept me grounded was the boys. I knew that I couldn't do anything because of them, because they needed me. Not that I didn't care about anybody else, but those were the only folks that were with me the whole time, and really didn't leave me at that time. There were other people that were with me the whole time, but at that time it was, I was really really concerned that the boys, and there was one night that I told them, why don't they just go ahead and go up to my mom's and stay at that night, and because I just wanted to be alone. And Wyatt, he's my oldest, he's the one that turned 17 today. He said, "No," he said, "Dad, I want to stay with you." He said, I'm not going to leave you." So it was pretty rough. We had some rough times, and I had rough days and nights, and the friendship that I had developed through the public safety world, and through NINA and my other organizations, they helped me. I know that a lot of you, we're a family Dispatch is a family, but I tell you, you don't know how you don't know how it is until this shit goes on, because it's rough. It's super rough. Um, so that year, see, so that was, I think we were in, that was the Texas, or that was the conference. We were in Orlando. So me and the boys drove down there, and so they were there for the few days. And I tell you what, that was one of the hardest things I'd done. I was coming off the NINA board, had been involved in that for years, and then it was gone. And I felt bad because Monica was being sworn in as Monica would have been sworn in as president, and I felt bad because I couldn't even watch her swearing in because it was so rough on me. I was just in a bad place, man. It was super bad. But over the next couple months, we kind of bounced back. Where I'm at now is a small county in southern Indiana. It's about, sorry, I'm about an hour south of Terre Haute. So that was the area, the agency I was in before was Vigo County, Terre Haute, Indiana. Luckily, this I had done some kind of freelance work for this county before when we had the same CAD, and they weren't Knox County. They didn't get their CAD together straight, and it was they had just had some rough times, and they didn't have it right. And myself and another person from the Vigo County come down here and was trying to help them get their CAD right because they just didn't have it together. And we were trying to figure out, trying to help them because that's just how we were. We were trying to help our friends out. So we come down here and did some work for them. And the county commissioner that was down here was already a friend of mine anyway. So she had, I notified her and just told them what was kind of, what was going on. And, she's like, well, if we could do anything, I would, I would, see what we could do. I just realized that there's a spelling error in my slide. I apologize for that. I look like an idiot. I think. Is that wrong? I think that's spelled wrong. Anyway, so we come down here and they were getting ready to go through my do some transition probably for their PSAB down here. This is all while I had looked at job after job after job and application and I tell you, I know I'm skipping everywhere, but I apologize for that. If you have never had to fill out unemployment or do that and do the whole have to try to apply for 3 jobs a week and whatever and do that. That is the biggest crock of shit of anybody in the world. And I will tell you, I don't know if the rest of your agencies are having as hard time getting applications and employees and people to show up to do jobs as it is right now. But the whole unemployment thing is such a racket, and we could do another session on that, but my God, it was crazy. Trying to make sure that you had your jobs and fill out your lists, and this doesn't work, and this doesn't work. It was crazy. Oh my God, it was bad. So anyway, they were getting ready to kind of probably doing something down here with they were looking at going a different direction as well in this county that I'm currently in. So they had, this was about probably middle July. I had a couple job offers and we were looking at probably going to the private sector and things just weren't really working out yet. So I got a call on I don't know, probably is the end of July, and said, hey, this is what we're looking at doing. Can you give us some insight? And we know that you're in a bad time right now, but we might be able to do something. So I come down and met with them, and they were getting ready to have some turnover in this area. So I'm like, yeah, I can do whatever we need to do, and we can move forward. So like I said, I drove down here. It's 1 hour and 22 minutes from my house or from my door to the door of my PSAP I'm in now. So come down here and we met and decided what we need to do. Coming down, it was just going to be a lunch meeting to where we kind of figured out what was up. Ended up being pretty much a job interview and a negotiation for getting me to come down to this area. So this county has probably close to 40,000 people in it. Their calls for service they run about 30,000 calls for service per year, and like 18,000 911 calls a year. My former position I was in, we ran about 150,000 calls for service a year, 75,000 to 80,000 911 calls, and it was a much bigger center than what I was previously into, what I was moving into. So I was trying to figure out what I needed to do and what it would take to get me to come down here. So, and it was supposed to just be for 6 months while they transitioned and kind of overcame what they needed to do from the past and to get them online. Because when I came down here, the dispatchers had no training. They had not completed any training other than their initial EMD and CPR and IDAX or NCIC training. That was all they'd done. There was no additional training, nothing. They'd never gone to any conferences. They'd never heard of NINA. They'd never heard of APCO. They only knew what priority dispatch was because that's who they used to get their EMD from. Of course, they'd never heard within the trenches or anything of the 901 podcast or anything like that. These guys, basically, they come to work every morning, did their job, and they went home and had nothing else going on in the PSAP. They basically didn't know what a PSAP was, and they didn't know if they went to they didn't know what it was like crossing the county lines or what any type of dispatch was in another state or anything else that was going on. So at that time, I'm like, holy cow. We've got to figure out what's going on here and what I can do to help this agency and to bring these people in the right direction. Again, it was supposed to be, for a 6 month adventure. And so I was figuring, okay, I said my start date was August the 6th, and we figured we were going to go into go for 6 months, and that would have taken me into about the 1st of March of 2020. So we did that in the first few days I was here. I never try not to do too much at the beginning. Was kind of getting me on my pins and needles. I met with these folks. About the first week I was here, they didn't know anything about me other than I was coming in from Terre Haute and Vigo County, and they had heard, they knew that what type of call volume we had up there, but they didn't know the type of person I was. They just knew that this guy in a busy center was coming down to take them over, so they were all on pins and needles anyway. Had a lot of, I won't say pushback, but they didn't know what to expect of me. So I told them that we're going to walk, we're not going to run, we're going to take things kind of easy and just kind of get to know everybody. When I took over the office that the former director had, it wasn't an office, it was just a storage space. There was a recumbent bike in here. Like I said, there was a recumbent bike in here. There was a desk and a computer that hadn't been logged into it wasn't even accessible, files and paperwork and just stuff that it was not a desk. It was not an office. It was not a director's office. It was just a catch-all. The former director was she sat out at the one of the consoles all the time and would dispatch, and I don't have any problems with that. But there was so much that needed to be done on the back end that she'd sit out there, take calls, and micromanage all the employees out there from where she was at, instead of doing things that she needed to do in her office. So I actually have to set up an office and get new computers and figure out what was going on this backside, aside from all the catching up bills and private and emails and getting everything switched over was crazy. So the first couple of weeks of being here, I was going through not having any. They had zero type of really standard operating procedures, nothing in writing, and it was just kind of a free for all. Trying to figure out who the movers and shakers in the county were and who the employees were and what they needed to do. I was coming home every night just absolutely exhausted. One, from the hour and a half drive every day, but then just being down here and trying to make heads or tails of what's going on. And one of the biggest no-nos that I had, I was getting bills of stuff that needed to be paid, for the next couple months. Actually, I'm getting bills from stuff that needed to be paid where they were being sent to an email. Well, the email that was being used was the former director's private email, her Gmail account. Even though they had a county email set up for them, the only thing that was used on that government email was her looking for other jobs and Indeed jobs and job notifications. Any type of invoices or emails from companies that the center had already been using were all sent to a private email address, and not the public, or not the government email address. So I'm trying to figure things out, figure out why they're using private, or why they're using private emails, and get bills that are caught up and everything else that needed to be paid. And man, I'm losing my shit. It's every day that I am like trying to figure out what's going on, and still even trying to figure out if I want to be down here. When I first come down here, I told the employees that I will not be here for, I did not want this as a full-time job. I had other ideas. I was just here to get things going, get them in the right direction, and then I was going to transition out, bring somebody else in, and let me figure out what's going on. But I got down here, and these people treated me, the people here in Knox County treated me like a king. They come in, everybody was super friendly, and usually when you come in from another county, especially a bigger county, they're kind of standoffish. I had extensive background in the CAD that they were using, the mobile CAD that they were using, mapping systems and all that, and I'm trying to help the sheriff's office get the data that they need and work with how they need to get their programs going, and because they were having issues, and they had issues with the company that they'd purchased it, and they were just having all kind of issues. So I volunteered, being here a month or so, volunteered to help the sheriff's office get their stuff back in working order and figure out what it was. And I'll never forget, the sheriff's office was a bit questioning me, and not sure what was going on, and how can I come down here? Why was I coming down here to help? And why they had heard that I'd been let go in Terre Haute, and what was my story, and trying to figure out why I was down here, and they were just a little standoffish. So I told them that I would help them work on their mobile CAD. So I know that the sheriff called the major at the sheriff's department. I worked at Vigo County, and was asking about me. It's like, hey, this Rob kid, or let's say this Rob guy has offered to help us, and we don't know anything about him. Can you tell us a little bit about him? And the major called me later that day. He said, Rob, I just want you to know that I just got a call from the sheriff and was, questioning you and your ability and everything. And he said, I told him, I said, if Rob is offering to do anything for you and to make your stuff better, let him do it, because he knows his shit. Said he's never going to he's not going to lead you in the wrong direction. He was totally done wrong here. So if he's offering to help you, make sure you take any help that he can. And that was probably one of the best points of my being down here in a new area, because I knew that I just gained the trust of the sheriff. I already had the trust of the commissioners because they already knew me, or the commissioner knew me, and I dealt with them. But I hadn't dealt with really anybody else in the public safety field down here. And with them telling me that, or the major telling the sheriff that, it made me feel good. And then it wasn't, 25 minutes later, I was getting a call from the sheriff, and he's like, "Hey, Rob," he said, "this is sheriff, and we'd like to come over and talk with you and figure out what we can do in our mobile CAD to make it work better." So then I knew that I had made the right choice, and knew things were going. Probably I was going to be looking at doing fine down here. So over the next several months, I'm working, and we got some high class product. Not, I won't say high class products, but some. One of the first things I did was I purchased Virtual Academy for the dispatchers for additional training, because they had none. They need to get some additional training. I had come in about budget time, so we needed to put some training money in the budget. So they went from zero training money into a budget, and at that first year, I think I put $6,000 or $7,000 in for training budget, to where we could actually send the dispatchers to training. And when I said I was going to send them to training, they're like, "What do you mean we're going to training?" I'm like, "Well, you're going to go to a conference, you're going to go to any type of training that's around here that you guys want to go, so you guys can stay up on what's going on." And they were like ecstatic. They didn't know what to do. They didn't know how to act. And it was kind of crazy, because they didn't understand it. So we started the whole thing. We started a public education campaign, because they had never done anything like that, with teaching people about 911, going into the community, talking about 911. We were working on that. Working on our text to 911. The courses, Indiana is one of the leaders in texting to and from 911. And when I come down here, they weren't using the Texty program that we use. They had never done it, and I implemented it. On a 911 hangups will be texting back instead of calling back. They went from maybe having, in that first year, maybe using, they had zero text initiated, or zero text to 911, to the first year. I think we ended up with probably maybe 10 texts to 911, and about 200, text from 911. And then last year, I was just pulling up stats yesterday for an article in the media, that in 2020, we had 21 texts to 911 and 421 texts from 911, where we had called to text somebody back. So the increase in texting to 911 was, probably 400% more, or however much I was, because they weren't using it. The training that they had done was crazy amounts. They started, one of the first things I did was get them memberships with NINA and memberships with APCO, so they could know what's going on. They could be involved in other PSAP, know what's going on in other PSAPs, and understand how it's going on out there. And just finally understanding the whole situation of what a dispatch center is like. And I tell these people, the dispatchers we had, they just totally, they ate it up. They're like, "Man, we didn't know. We've been sheltered for so long. We had no clue what it was like." And they have turned over, they've just absolutely turned over, the difference that this agency has made is great. They had a terrible working relationships with other public safety individuals in the county, other public safety agencies. Now, we get firefighters stopping by, we get other police officers stopping by, the sheriff drops in just to see what's going on. The other chiefs of fire departments get to see what's going on. Total support from the community, just making things so much better. And these guys understand. They are understanding what it's like to be in in one of the better dispatch centers in the world, or in the state. I know that our state 911 director told the county commissioner, after I'd been down here 6 months or so, they're like, said before Rob come in there, said Knox County wasn't even on the radar in the state 911. Said nobody, people knew where Knox County was, but there was nothing coming out of here. They didn't know anything. They didn't seem to care about what Knox County was. Said now, he said, they've told her, said, you've got a director down there that has put Knox County back on the map. Said they've gone from one of the bottom in the state to one of the top in the state. And that made me feel good too, because I knew that, I have the support from people in the state and other agencies and other, my colleagues, but I didn't feel like I had it in myself. But it made me feel good for that. So, I should have been leaving here about March or so, looking for other things. Well, we all know what happened in March of last year. Yeah, the shit show began, the pandemic hit, and pretty much everything shut down. Where I was probably looking at going in the private sector, that kind of shut down with conferences and the whole, just basically, we all know that the whole United States pretty much shut down. So we kept working through. We were able to launch some of the major programs that we wanted to do, and a lot of our public education died because of we couldn't go out for the outreach. We couldn't go out to fairs. We couldn't go out to fish fries. We couldn't go to any of the functions because they had all quit. So we're trying to do as much as we could with social media. So we worked and just worked through the pandemic. I will tell you that being in a small center, I've got 12 employees. I never once thought, as any of the other directors they're on here, or any other employees, or anybody, PSAP folks, period, understand and know how stressful it was last year going through the pandemic, trying to keep your employees afloat with, basically you wanted to put a bubble around them to keep them from getting COVID and to keep them healthy. And I did that. I didn't put a bubble, but we were able to avoid COVID with any of the employees getting COVID until around November the 11th of 2020. And then it's like everything just dropped out. I had one employee that had gotten sick. Actually, his wife had gotten sick, and he worked for a few days until he kind of understood what was going on, and then he got sick. And then another one got sick, and another one got sick, and another one got sick. So from November the 11th to December the 16th, 8 out of my 12 employees got COVID. And I tell you what, it was crazy. We're normally on 12 or 8-hour shifts. We went to a 12-hour shift schedule, and the people that were, they would go and some people had it worse than others, but they would go out and be, then the healthy people would work the 12 hours and be okay. And then people just come back in the right, excuse me, come back in the right times. But everything was good until, we just got it done. Needless to say that my 6-month term, as I told them, I didn't want it to be full time. And then they kept saying, Rob, are you sure you don't want to be here? My 911 advisory board is like, Rob, we want you to stay here. Keep doing this. Keep doing this. So I'm like, well, I'm not really interested. And then it got toward the end of last year, and COVID was, pretty much taking over everything, and there was not any other job aspects out there. So I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll probably just do this. Well, we kept doing it, and then finally, January of this year, the county commissioners decided, asked me, do you want to stay? I was like, yes, I do want to stay. So they made me full time. So I went from an intern position saying that I didn't want this position. I didn't want the full-time because I was looking for something else, to a full-time position. And now I'm here. I love it down here. The drive does suck every day, but luckily my commissioners and my 911 advisory board are cool with me. I work basically 3 days a week in the office, and I work from home 2 days a week. so I can, because I have access to everything that I need here, so I don't have to drive every day. The one thing that does suck, once the council they lowered my pay what it should have been, and then we got a big piss and moan and match with them at a county council meeting where the council made me feel like an idiot because I said it should have been brought up at budget time, but I told them it couldn't be brought up at budget time because you didn't want to adjust any salaries. And at the time, the county was going through a lawsuit with the former director at this location because of she was claiming discrimination, so they couldn't change any salaries, or they wouldn't make me full time or do anything like that, just because of the whole lawsuits. And it was like I said, a piss and moan match with the council. And if any of you guys have to deal with your county council or your county administrators a lot, it's sometimes not the best. But so now I'm here. We're full time. I bounced back. I'm not going to lie. There's still some major bouts of depression. I will tell you, and somebody very close and dear to my heart will tell you that I'm one of the moodiest sons of bitches in the world. And she tells me that on a pretty much an everyday basis. And we're bouncing back. The agency is good. I've my dispatchers are going through a heck of a lot of training now. They love to do the training, the NINA, the online training that NINA's doing. They're that. I now have 6 of my employees that have the excellence in dispatch certifications that NINA put out. They're going through some APCO training. We're getting ready to implement EPD, EFD. Here in the next several months through Priority Dispatch. We already have EMD, but we're implementing everything. Our folks are excited to become a ACE certified center. And I tell you what, probably one of the best decisions of my life was staying down here. And I'm not going to lie, I still keep in contact with a lot of my former employees that I had in Vigo County, and even the major and some of the other people up there said, Rob, and even my former IT group that I brought down here with me, and they're still in Vigo County too. They're like, Rob, you got out in the right time. Said even though we hated that what happened to you, but it was the best thing in the world that you were able to leave, because it is nothing but a shit show. And it is the worst that they've ever seen it in this area now. So that makes me feel good too, that know that I had so much going on and kept things afloat up there, and I could bring that my knowledge and everything that is down here. I'm not going to lie, it's not been the easiest. I've had to overcome, like I said earlier, a lot of people not understanding me, thinking that everything but the worst happened up there, not understanding that how it was. And I had a lot of questioners here, and like, why would we want to hire somebody that was fired from another agency? And there was a lot of people on Facebook that I don't even know that stood up for me, said, just because somebody gets fired doesn't mean that he can't do the job. Said people get fired from McDonald's all the time, and you go into another job, which I wouldn't say, but that's the best thing to say, is I get fired from McDonald's and I go to another job. But it was the truth. Just because somebody gets fired from one place doesn't make them a bad person and they can't do another job. It's, you don't know what's going on. And plus, when working for public safety, in being in the leadership position like this, and working under county commissioners, you just never know how it's going to be. So I tell you, we're rocking and rolling down here. I've got a great group of dispatchers, but as I said earlier, I tell you, right now, trying to find employees is probably the worst I've ever had to do it. And I will say, when I was in Terre Haute, when I'd have open up job applications or job postings, I'd have 100 or 200 applicants every time I had employee or had a listing. This time I'm lucky to get down here. I'm lucky to get maybe 10 applications, and then you go to set up employers. And when you go to set up applications or job interviews, nobody shows up. I had 9 job interviews set up 3 weeks ago, and not a one of the people showed up. Nobody showed up, and I was about to lose my shit. I'm like, why are you people not doing that? And I talked to a lot of people, like everybody's going through the same stuff. So it's annoying, but we're dealing with it. I've had 3 interviews this week, and actually 3 people showed up. We're having a bit of a problem keeping people working, but I think that's how everybody is right now. But we're keeping on. I feel like Joe Dirt saying, we're just keeping on, because that's what it is. We're keeping our heads above water. Again, I will give credit to my dispatchers, my supervisors. They're an amazing group. We they're loving things. I'm trying to keep them happy, with software and hardware, and they're overcoming a lot of changes, letting them do a lot of things, and just keeping things going. I've this is the job that I love, and I was reading some of the comments over here, and somebody said, maybe saying that moody isn't just and Lori said moody is just another word for passionate, right? And I would say in the 911 world, I would say, yeah, I'm very passionate. I don't know that everybody on here that is passionate. There's a lot of folks, a lot of friends of mine that have been posting comments, and I know all these people are passionate. Ricardo's passionate, Leah, everybody within the trenches media, and then everybody that's on here. We're all passionate 911 folks. I'm a very passionate 911 folk. I love 911. I never thought that being um, I never thought that being in the 911 world, because when I went to college got a degree in criminology, one of those degrees that don't do anything. Um, I never thought that I'd get in the 911 world. My world was going to be a police officer, and then I didn't hold the academy thing. Didn't work out for me because I was too fat to run. Um, and couldn't make the time. I never thought that 901 would be the world that I went into, but I got into it. Never thought that I'd make a career out of it. Then never thought that I'd get involved with an organization as awesome as Nina is, that allowed me to travel the United States and Mexico, preaching the word about 911. And man, I'm so glad that I went this direction. So glad that I've done what I have. I've met great people, lots of fun people, and a family. And being last year, not being able to go to any conferences and see my 901 family was a killer. I tell you, it was one of the hardest things that I've gone to, and now I can't wait to get back to. I'm glad conferences are coming back on, and I can't wait to see people within the next couple months at Priority, at Navigator, and Nina and APCO. And I'm so glad that they're back on. So I know I've rambled on for about the last 50 minutes, and probably you guys are probably like, well, what in the hell has he talked about? We have no clue, because I have very bad ADD, and I can't keep my thoughts together, and I have totally destroyed 2 paper clips that I've made into little paperclip origami and bounced around. So if anybody has any questions, comments, feel free to ask, or if anybody has anything else, you can pipe up, because I think I've probably talked long enough. I know it's been rough, and I told Ricardo that this morning I said I wasn't feeling it. I felt like this was going to suck, and you guys are probably just all, from the comments here, you guys are all you guys are trying to make me feel good, but hopefully it wasn't too bad, and you were able to learn something, and kind of, I guess the moral of my story is, don't give up, because I was ready to give up in more ways than one. I was ready to throw in the towel, more times than I'd want to admit. There's a lot of people in the 911 community that helped me overcome, but we did it. So Anyway, if anything has anything else, feel free. Oh, and my boy Ricardo just popped back up on the screen.
Bro, I'm so glad that you did this session. I'm so glad that you made it out of this. I remember when that happened back in February, and I was driving somewhere, and I remember you called me, and we were talking, and we talked for a while, and to hear the rest of the story, and for everyone to hear your story, for you to be in such a good spot, but then out of nowhere, just have the rug yanked from underneath you, and going through those dark times, but also making your way back. I mean, that is an amazing story. And when we were first talking about you doing a session like this, it was like, you got to do this, because a lot of people will learn from this, and there are probably some who are going through something similar, and they don't know what to do either. And you're a prime example of someone going to hell and coming back, right? And it's like the job that had sent you to that dark place was also really the job that also brought you back, right? Because from listening to it, listening to your story, you kind of went back to basics. So a lot of times we hit a burnout, right? And we're trying to find out how to get our passion back in this industry. And that's what it was. You went to a place to help, right? You were only there only slated for a short time. And you ended up meeting a bunch of people who didn't know a lot of not the outside world, well, anything outside of that center. And the training piece alone, going to training, that response of what, really, we get to do this, and to find out about the organizations that are out there. There's so much more stuff, like resources, everything that I can see really filled your cup and beyond, because you were able to bring them out of kind of a dark spot as well, a spot that they really didn't know, and in the process was also helping you. And you've done so much for that center, and also all of those who are in this session who will see this and learn from your story, man. Thank you so much for doing this session.
Yeah, I appreciate you giving me the offer. I know that we pitched this last year at 901 Goes to Washington. We were probably the last conference that any of us attended for the most part. I think we were sitting in that little that restaurant across from the hotel, eating our pretzels and those damn free pretzels and
so good.
They were. I want those so bad.
I was trying to stay gluten free, and I couldn't help it. Those pretzels are so good, man.
We were chowing on that stuff, and we said that this is what we need to do. And then when you reached out and said, "Hey, we need to do this," man. I tell you, I've got two people going to Navigator. 3 people going to Nina, and 2 people going to APCO. So, and those are the people that I let them go who wanted to go, and some people are older and don't want to go and they can't go. So, and I'm excited to go and get this back and going. And these people are excited. So I appreciate you letting me do this, Ricardo, and the Within the Trenches media folks. I have always been a huge supporter of you, and this Dare to Be Great is awesome. You've done more for 901 than anybody else has, and I've told you that numerous times. And I am so proud to call you my bro, because you've been there for me, and we've had a lot of fun through the ride. So,
dude, when I see you next, I'm gonna give you a big ass hug, because I wish I could hug you right now. That is amazing. Thank you so much for the support always, and again for sharing your story. It's been amazing. And if you get a chance, man, go back in and read the comments. Rob is also in the Discord community as well. If you want to make contact with him through there, you can make contact there as well. How else can people get a hold of you? LinkedIn or any other social media?
Yeah, I'm on everything. I'm on Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, TikTok, Facebook. I am a social media whore, and a social media whore. But Rob McMullen on Facebook. I think it's the same thing on Twitter. Hell, I don't know. I'm on everything. So, but you can get the
Well,
read here
yeah.
on Discord, and I guess I should have put my email up on there. My email is rmcmullen@knoxcounty.in.gov. I'll put that down here in the little comments.
Sounds good. So make sure to, for those who are watching, whether it's right now, of course, or in the replay, to click on the Discord community. You can join in there and make contact with Rob as well. Thank you again very much. Our next session is going to be coming up at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, and it's going to be with Roxy Van Gundy, Lyon County Emergency Communications Center, and her session is going to be "Don't Build a Roof: Figuring Out Your Why and Where It Could Lead You." Thank you again, Rob, so very much, and everyone. I will bring you to the next one.
Thanks, buddy.